Last speaker tonight is Dave Seber from HempShield, longtime activist and business owner in the hemp industry. Dave, please take the stage.
Hi, folks. Good to see you. Want to say hello. The truth of it is, not only am I good friends with every single person that spoke up here, I know a lot of you in the audience, and I'm certainly glad to be here and appreciate what you guys have been doing. Now, I was asked to speak generally about industrial hemp and historical stuff, so I'm not going to mention a lot about HempShield during this talk I'm going to give right now. However, I would like you to know HempShield is honest Eugene hemp history. It was invented right here. It is the most original industrial hemp product to be put on the market in 50 years. It opens up a complete new category that transcends building materials and includes stuff from furniture to yachts. So it's a great product, it's Eugene's own, and we did that. That being said, I now want to, before I also start, I want to also say that, as I said, all these people are my friends, a lot of you guys are. Everything that was said tonight was at least legally true. And to the end, I would like to thank Todd for being accurate in reality too. However, after doing the work on this, for being an activist for 50 years and an industrial hemp advocate for 25 years, I started in the early 1990s. I read Jack's book. I was convinced. I then wanted to find out, what is this thing, industrial hemp? Now, and how is it associated with this low THC? I know that humanity has been using hemp for thousands of years, and that in countries like Morocco and Afghanistan, the same plants are used to make textiles, to make all sorts of foods, and also for medicinal and recreational purposes. So, who's kidding who on this? What's the reality on this? Now, the truth of it is that all the taxonomic systems that we have are not realistic. And when the genomics, which is now starting to come out, is coming out, it turns out that there's really only one species, Cannabis sativa, and all the rest are cultivars. There are groups of traits that some people associate with hemp and that some people associate with medicinal or recreational. And it totally depends on which plant, under which circumstances you do this. So I can't, and the truth of it is, the epigenetics of hemp is not known yet. And I believe that's what's going to determine how we figure out how the expression actually goes. However, in 1990, I decided to explore this further. So I contacted Richard Evans Schultes. Now, his letter is up here. I'm going to read it to you off the wall in a minute. But first, I'll tell you who Richard was. He was a Harvard blue blood. He is the father of ethnobotany. He invented it. He graduated Harvard in the early part of the 20th century, went to Iowa and chewed peyote with the Kiowa Indians for 9 years. Then he went down to South America and he chewed ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle. Then he chewed coca leaves with the Javaros up in Colombia. In the 50s, he went to Mexico and he met Maria Sabina, the famous curandera, who introduced him to psychedelic mushrooms, and he was the first one to write the taxonomy on psychedelic mushrooms. He was also the greatest plant taxonomist in America during the 20th century, and he was the first one to make a modern review of the plant kingdom in the Amazon basin. He's grandpa. When he discovered the mushroom, for example, and he turned one of his students onto it, a guy named Wasson. Wassan's students were Aldous Huxley, Timothy Leary, Richard Alpert. You guys get it, what I'm talking about? This is Grandpa. He wrote the Handbook to Psychedelic Drugs with Albert Hofmann, and he had so much credibility that he forced the publishers of those Golden Guide books, you ever remember reading them as a kid? To publish a Golden Guide on hallucinogenic plants during the 1960s. Here's the letter that I wrote, and I also spoke with Richard Evans Schulte. He says, "Dear Mr. Seber, in your recent letter, you indicate that you would like to get authorization to cultivate THC-free clones of Cannabis sativa for fiber to make paper and cardboard. Although as a botanist, although I am a botanist and do not know the procedures involved in the legal aspects of this move, I understand that THC clones do exist. I have not encountered them, but I have heard that the government cannabis collection at the University of Mississippi has representatives of this type of clone. In my work at this collection a number of years ago, I did not encounter them. If you can get government authorization to cultivate THC-free clones and can procure at least one of them, it would be an extraordinary step forward towards the conservation of much of the forest resources in the American Northwest. I have heard that England is interested in this type of cannabis for paper and for other uses too. I suggest you contact scientists at the Cannabis Collection and see what they have to say." This letter is 1993. This is Grandpa. He never saw industrial hemp. He never heard of it being connected with a low THC requirement. I have not been able to get a straight answer from anybody on how low THC is associated with industrial hemp. It doesn't make sense. I've asked at the OHA meetings, I've asked everybody who I know, there's nothing that connects it. In fact, the truth of the matter is, if you want to grow the very best, highest tensile bast fiber from a hemp plant, you want a high THC variety, and you don't even want to let it go to seed to have the highest tensile thing. You want sensimilla. So the truth of it is, there's one plant. It can do many things. In fact, it can do all the things at the same time. So we got to stop this insanity. We're not even calling it by the right names. The laws are wrong from that level, okay? We need to understand it's one plant, and it can do all those things at the same time. All these conflicting laws have to go. And when that's happened, we will realize that hemp is really the 800-pound gorilla sitting in the back of the room. And all these other stuff are just side trips to it. How does this work? Huh? Somebody help me here. How do I get to the other? How do I get to the other, the PowerPoint one? I don't know how to do it. No, that's not me. There we go. It's that one right there. Before I got involved with HempShield, I wrote this presentation on industrial hemp and a sustainability report. Here's a table of contents. Info, help from hemp, the poster, the explanation, why industrial hemp, hemp attributes, industrial hemp products, biofuel production methods, pyrolysis, hemp composites, hemp building Ireland, 21st century applications, conclusions. Now, as I said, I wrote this in 2009. There was no conception out there about industrial hemp as far as its potentials, its growing, or anything else. However, the next thing that I did was I ended up starting work at Washington State University, and I produced the world's first modern hemp-based MDF, which is medium density fiberboard, which is the flagship product of the composite industry. This proved to the whole world and the whole industry that this industry, which is the only worldwide fiber-based industry of its kind, can actually be used the way it is in order to produce these things. I made this poster. Now, I'm going to read to you what it says down here in this section. And remember, this was in 2009. The hemp field is to be densely planted with little or no side branching in order to produce 10 to 15 tons of green stalk per acre with minimum foliage. Depending on the end use and cultivar, it may be possible to allow the crop to go to seed, providing another valuable asset in the seed oil, which can be used for any number of applications. More research needs to be done in this area. So, what I'm saying here is neither exclusive or inclusive, in that I'm not saying this is the only way that we could do anything, or that there aren't other ways that this could be approached. But what happens is this. I go and produce the boards. I get an appointment with the Roseburg Lumber Company, one of the biggest lumber companies in the United States, probably the most redneck one there is. They come, I go down to see them. They say, Dave, we know what you did. We know it works, and we're ready as soon as you can meet our price. And he said, oh, and by the way, Dave, we need 1,400 dry tons of fiber per day, 323 days a year. Can you provide this for us? Will you put it in writing? We sure will. To this day, nobody's even reproduced my prototypes yet that I know of. Okay? We got a customer down in Roseburg that needs 1,400 tons a day. And there's lots of those plants all over. In fact, this is what's going on all over the planet. We don't understand how much fiber is being consumed by all these different products and what we're doing with them. Okay? So, here I am, I'm stuck. Nobody's growing even industrial. How are we going to get from 0 to 1,400 tons a day? Okay? It's not going to start that way. These are farmers you're talking about. Farmers need to be shown how they can do something and how they can make money at it along the way. So what I did was I researched a set of applications, and you can see them over here. The first grade is called raw. That means there's nothing done to the plant at all. And this is to make biofuels like ethanol and diesel. Now let me talk about this, and also to make agricultural supplements. It turns out that before any Europeans ever got to the New World, there was between 20 and 300 million people living on the Amazon River, from the mouth of the river 200 to 300 miles inland, in cities and towns back to back on both sides of the river. They don't even know the name of the civilization. All that's left is a layer of soil, and they know that it's man-made soil. They call it terra preta, okay? It turns out that this civilization left this stuff. The main component of terra preta is charcoal. So what is the deal? A gram of charcoal holds 1,600 square feet of surface area, okay? So terra preta, when you mix it, when you make the charcoal, which we've been making charcoal forever, and you inoculate it. How do you inoculate it? You take some compost and you let the mycorrhiza go through it. That inoculates it, and then you mix it in your topsoil at a rate of 20%. It does three things right off the top. Number one, it stops all nutrient runoff out of the fields. Listen to what I'm saying. This is the end of agriculture polluting the watersheds of the earth. This is the end of forestry polluting the watersheds of the earth. How's that for a starter? Number two, it reduces the amount of outside fertilizer you need immediately, 60 to 80%, and eventually, if you keep putting more in, you don't need it at all. So literally, we're talking about solving world hunger. Number three, it increases the yield of whatever you're growing, 30 to 300%. So, this is why we need hemp. This is the roadmap of what we can do with it. So the truth of it is that there's three different ways that you can make this make biofuels. One is the way they're doing it with the corn, which is a disaster, where they're making it into ethanol and then into alcohol. The second way is is another form of biodigestion using microbes, which has been shown to work, is very interesting, but nobody has shown it to work at scale yet. The third way is to do this pyrolysis. And if you use a closed container and a full modern setup to do it, which is about the cost of a modern tractor, by the way, so we're talking a realm that a farmer can deal with, okay? You get, what you can do is you pull off the gas as you heat it, and the gas, you run over a catalyst. And it's almost the opposite of the thing in your car, where you've got a catalyst in your car. And what that is a set of different kinds of metals. And depending on the sequence of metals, it changes the chemistry of the gas into something else. For this, it would be the exact opposite, in that you collect the gases off the biomass that you're heating. It can be up to 30% by volume of whatever you used. Depending on which set of catalysts you use to do this, you can make biofuel, you can make biodiesel, gasoline, ethanol, methanol, or plastic resin. And whichever one of those you make is absolutely pure, not like the stuff that's manufactured from the stuff in the ground. So maybe Mr. Farmer could also run his equipment at the same time and have no pollution and stop being an environmental villain, okay? This is reality. This is how we can start right here in Oregon with single large farmers or a group who get together and start doing this. What farmer wouldn't like to stop using 60% of the fertilizer he's paying for? What farmer wants to pay for gasoline and fuel? How about 30 to 300% better yield? Does this make sense? Now, there's even more to it than this, in that it definitely helps in carbon sequestration. And it also, because think what I'm saying, you're taking the biochar and you're putting it into the earth. There you are. There's even more to it, which I'm not going to talk about tonight. But the truth of it is, this is the first step. This is how we can, all our farmers can get going, where we can turn hemp into a crop instead of a horticultural product as it is today, okay? The next thing is what I call clean. This is something where they've removed the leaves and all the finer fibers. From that, you can make advanced composites. That's where all this stuff comes from, okay? I've already told you the scale of what this is on. We literally have a unique opportunity here in Oregon. We know how to do it. All we have to do is switch and stop destroying the forest, and we could do a great thing for everyone, okay? I've gone through the sawmills. I've gone through it all, and with the exception of the loggers, none of those guys are in love with trees per se. When I say, would you mind it if you use something else to make the products that you're running on your forklift? They say, I get the same money. You say, you get the same money. Let me at it. They don't even talk about wood in the composite industry. They're fiber guys. So that's one of our next steps. The next one after that I call sized. This is where you've taken out the leaves, you've taken out all the powder, okay? And this is where you can make structural members and all sorts of sidings, moldings, furniture, what have you. And what this is, now each one of these products involves a production facility of more and more complexity and cost. So that's the idea. We can enter into a sequence of steps that make sense, not only to us, but to a farmer. Okay, not a grower, but a farmer who knows what he's doing. And he can follow this and make money the whole way. And yes, the CBD temporarily will be the main source of income. But as Todd said, the truth of it is, you cannot afford to move that fiber if you want to use it economically in manufacturing. And that's going to be the justification for locally growing it. Because believe me, the price of cannabis is not going to stay at what it's at, okay? The Colombians have just announced that they're going full tilt for this. They got it 12 hours, 365 days a year. We can't touch them for growing and all of that. But if we want to have a factory that's making panels here, we need to grow it here. So that's what justifies it. And if when we grow it, we end up with hundreds and thousands of acres that we're using for these factories. Think about the top 2 feet, which we're going to extract the CBD out of. It's more than you could shake a stick at. So it's all there. And it becomes a side, and as the value of the recreational and the medicinal goes down, the industrial stays the same. It becomes the justification, and the other is just a side product. Thank you, folks. I hope you enjoyed it.
All right, Dave, do you have time to answer just a few questions? I think we've got some hands.
Okay, Dave, so one of my questions about the composite materials and the canoe that Roger showed, the plastics and such, thus far that I'm aware of, it has like synthetic resins and such, but I'm wondering if we can get the resins from the oils of the hemp plant.
It's actually possible to do so. But the work has not been developed, as far as I know, by anybody yet. Most of the people who are using the hemp resin are using it with oil-based. The hemp fiber in plastic are using it with oil-based resins for now. But yes, it really is possible to do it.
Right, so it could be closed loop then. And also, as far as the concern about the high THC, low TH, which they revoked 13 licenses last year in Oregon, Southern Oregon, because of that fear. These plants have been coexisting together for thousands of years. And I read an article, I can't remember the source, but that the actual pollen of the hemp is heavy, so it actually falls to the ground instead of really carrying really far. I don't know, I mean, I know we're just doing research on that, because there's different variables about how far the pollen
Well, again,
gets.
you're talking about different kinds of agricultural techniques. Let me go back to talking about this thing about the hemp and the low THC and the Europeans. I really don't know who it came from, but I suspect it was from them. And I suspect it was a scam. The truth of it is, if you grow it, the Europeans grow the plants, at least when I saw them, 1.5 to 3 feet apart. At that sort of way, they have stuff drooping. They've got all sorts of weird stuff going on. The truth of it is they have the most horrible growing season you would ever believe. If you've ever been over to Northern Europe, you know, in the summer, you know what I'm talking about. It's cold and rainy all the time. So we went and we tried to copy their techniques. I'm talking about something new here. I'm talking about eliminating any processing as far as harvesting the crop. I'm talking about competing with biomass, because that's what we have to compete with. We want to have a sustainable source of biomass. And that's what this is about, okay? And that's why we need, and it also turns out that all the research that's been done on this terra preta says the same thing. It's kind of funny. All the original research says that the plant that gives the best balance between the gases that you pull off for fuels and the biochar is herbaceous woody shrubs. I wonder what a herbaceous woody shrub is. Anybody got a clue?
Other questions? I know I have one. So I'm in garden retail, and most of my customers are very dependent on organic oils as suffocants, smothering agents for pest control. And I'm a label reader, and I've never seen hemp oil as the base for a pest control product. Have you experimented with that, or do you know?
I've never seen it either.
Yeah.
I don't know it to do that.
You want to do some tests?
I wish I did. There are so many things. And that's the other thing. This idea that there's 25,000 different uses or even 50,000 is all wrong. It's bigger than that. The truth of it is there are potentials in the carbon science alone to dwarf any company or industry that the humanity has known today. That's how big some of the potentials are. And we're just not there yet. But if we allow this to happen, and we don't tolerate too much of the pretzel logic that they're trying to lay on us of these different sets of rules when it's one plant that can do all the things at the same time, maybe we'll get somewhere. Now, I know people don't like to hear this because that's not the way the law reads. But since it's cannabis sativa and the law talks about cannabis indica, which doesn't exist, where is it at? Are we going to really believe and trust the government that doesn't know what it's doing and never did? Or are we going to deal with the plant that tells us everything we need to know about it? Thank you.
Oh, I think there's just one more question, Dave.
Yeah, Dave, I think you've probably seen bringingithome.movie.com, produced by two beautiful women movie producers in Carolina about the first industrial hemp house in the United States. And there's two young architecture students. Hempitecture is they're building a first commercial building now. And I want to say that I spent most of July 4th writing a letter to the editor of the Register Guard about building the City Hall of Hemp. They took out the question mark from my title. I said, should we build City Hall of Hemp? And they made it Build City Hall of Hemp. They put it right next to their two-column editorial saying that we should put a pause on the City Hall. And on Monday, the City Council did put a pause on City Hall. So now's the time to start commenting about hemp. The other thing is the 6th International Building Symposium by Steve Allen from Ireland is being held in Verona, Italy. And that's going to be October 10th and 11th. And the other thing I want to say, remember back when you and Condi were working at CNS Specialty Building Supply, which stood for Cannabis Sativa and Condi and Seber, by the way, that the plants, the mills used to say, we are hungry for fiber. That was the cue. So, but do you say nobody else in the world is doing the MDF board that we did 30 years ago? Is that what you're saying? Or you don't know?
I haven't seen anybody reproduce the prototypes yet. No one's manufacturing it, no. That's not happening. I'm not sure. I don't know.
All right. Dave, thank you so much
Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Because I truly appreciate you folks and what you're doing here, I have a present for everyone. I have a copy of my poster. And I'd like a donation, but either way, if you want one, come to the table, take a poster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks to all of our speakers for not only paving the road, but lighting the torch and carrying this industry into the future. Oh, Dave? Dave? Can I get my clicker? Oh, right here. No worries. I just have 2 more announcements. Thank you. All right. So again, I wanted to thank our monthly sponsors. There's no way that we would be able to put these events on every single month without their support. So I just can't thank the community enough for stepping up and supporting this event. So big thanks to Willamette Hemp Company and Wild West Growers for their support and making this all possible. And we still have 2 books, I believe, to give away. So again, Todd's book, The Hemp Cookbook, I've got 2 on the back booth. All you have to do is give me a little feedback. And again, that feedback is so integral. Bethany and I do spend a lot of time reading it. And again, that type of feedback produces beautifully crisp projector screens like this for you all to enjoy. So thank you so much. Take just a moment. Ryan's in the back there with the evaluations in hand. And I'm actually gonna call tonight a little bit earlier, so I will call the winner at 8:30. So you got about 20 minutes to fill out that evaluation form and submit it for your prize. And please join us next month. We're gonna dive into cannabis technologies on August 30th. We're gonna be talking about seed-to-sale tracking systems, security systems, and all the computer science that's helping this budding industry grow. So again, everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thanks for making Cannabis Science Pub what it is.